I could pull this out. I could. And 99 times out of 100, I'm going to do it perfectly. That last time, I might move a slight and then put a ding in there, but at worst, it'll chuck the wood back at me. So this is a really advanced cut on the saw. By no means is it safe, but it's a cut that's regularly done. So it's one of those, I can do all this, but I still have them all. There are other cuts that are really advanced cuts, and we all have our safe, not safe rules. This one I'll do, and I'll do it this way. Have I pulled things back? Yeah, if I have a big piece and I have a lot of control over it, I will, but a little piece like this, I do it as safely as possible, because that's a lot stronger than me when I have a small piece. But when I have a big piece and I have more control. So it's all a... I can't have that in, because these are anti-kickbacks, so when you pull back, it stops the wood, right? So it also, I mean, it's a splitter, it keeps it straight. So I could actually, because I'm not pulling it back live, I could have used that. And then I would have, as this was off, lifted those up so I could pull it back. One of those moments where you hope you did your math right. for people watching you build, and and this is the part you kind of always want to jump right to the build. I'm not sure if you have a glue bottle, but when you try and get your glue bottle open, you don't use pliers. Just do a tap around the side to break it. And that way you won't damage it. If it's just a tap, it just cracks the glue. And then this, I'm gonna get it wrong because I'm looking at you. I don't go near enough to have a 50-gallon or a 5-gallon pail anymore. But you got to stay far enough away so the stream gets small. And then you just have to be steady. And you don't want to block the air going in, because if you block the air going in, it comes out in a big clump. But if you let the air go in at the top of the stream, it stays steady all the way through. With a 5-gallon pail, you put the 5-gallon pail sideways on the bench with the hole at the top, and then you turn the pail until the glue level inside is at the same height as the hole, and then turn it a little bit more and it just dribbles out the end nice and slow, so you don't actually have to lift the 5-gallon pail. There are all these fancy tip jigs for that, but the face of it's still on an incline, so don't try and get the edge flush all the way along. Get one end flush, either the top or the bottom, and then move this back and forth. This happens to be really straight plywood, which is why I'm using it. So it actually worked out, but oftentimes you can't do that.
So does the nail cinch it in, or is it just...
No. Nail holds it so I can put fast, like, screws in it. Or 13 3/4. So I'm just double checking my measurements to make sure I'm, yeah, 1.5 inches. So with an adjustable square, you can set it up to a depth and then bring it along. And you can see how wiggly this is right now, but again, it's not a box yet. And again, I'm not going to try and true up the whole thing. And I'm just looking straight down the piece of wood. And if you're not comfortable doing that, mark the outside of it. So you can see here, this isn't lined up all the way along there. So instead of doing the other side, and this is one of those times where if this is 1.5 inches to the face of it, set this up so it's 1.5 inches plus 3/8 of an inch. And 3/8 is half of 3/4. And then if you want to make sure you're gonna, I have to use my left hand. So that's my nailing point, because I can't actually I can guess and I'd get it right most of the time. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna work it along. Come in. Because if you tried to put this together and that wouldn't work. So the next thing, so if this is the lower top, right? And this one goes here, what I don't want to do, that actually worked out pretty well. Having tuned tools helps. I don't want to put one in and then the other. So I'm going to take the piece and I'm going to put it together first. But I'm also not going to be able to get in there to put a screw in there later. So I'm going to put this in. At certain points, if it was in the wrong place, you can actually go in like a 1/16 of an inch and dance and then straighten up again. But you can only do it a very short distance because it's a pretty delicate bit. Like say, I'm gonna step in from the edge a bit. Say I actually wanted it that way a bit. And the hole's over a bit. So you can actually just a hair, because if you do it too deep, this will snap. Right? So you gotta I'm not going all the way to the end because I don't want to see a round over on the ends, but it doesn't really matter because I have a table saw cut there, but so then that's going to go in there. Half the reason I have an apron is to wipe my fingers. It's if you don't flatten out the glue, it just goes everywhere. But you can see there's no squeeze out. I mean, there's rollers and things like that, and I have one and they're really useful, but the nails, the chisel on the nail is like this. So it's going to deflect left or right 9 times out of 10. So when I put it in, what I want to do, I'm going to put this screw in, and that'll flush this up here. It'll pull it back. So what happens is the nail's going to deflect this way or this way in the wood 9 times out of 10. If I held the nailer like this, it'll deflect out the sides more readily. So I'm always 90 degrees to the piece. It'll go this way or this way most of the time. The guy who showed me that guy's a builder. I didn't test this first, which I should have done, but that's the kind of rule. Before you glue it, you test it. And I just didn't do it this time because I'm a silly boy in a rush. So that's the majority of the box here. And so our goal is to be able to then put this in here. You're going to have enough clearance up top here, and the critical measurement, aside from it just fitting in the box, is ensuring that the top of this is in line with the top of this. I'd never done that before. That worked well. Pardon me?
It doesn't slip.
Yeah. So I'm not gluing this in just in case there's a mistake. And I'm using 1.25" screws so it won't poke through the outside. Oh, made a mistake. I made this, so I made it 3/4 of an inch too long. Because the bottom's got to go inside there. So when you're cutting on the table saw, cutting a short piece is very dangerous. Any piece shorter than 10 inches, there's an excellent chance the table saw will grab it and throw it at you. So even though I could use those pieces, it's not a safe cut. Every once in a while, when I drop a piece, I don't grab it because getting in the habit of trying to catch something when it falls can put your hand as a reflex towards the saw. So it's actually safer that's only a piece of wood, let it go. Now I can definitely feel that I'll be pushing this down because I didn't use a thinner piece on the bottom. So I didn't have any 18 mil handy like I did when I was building the other one. So this time, instead of using 2 different kinds of plywood, I'm just going to put a spacer in. Go. There. I just
When you screw side into this kind of plywood, plywood, does the plywood hold?
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. If you don't pre-drill though, it's not as strong because you're separating the layers of the plywood. But if you pre-drill, then the pre-drill is the same size as the shaft on the screw, so it's just the threads that grab, and they're super strong. Super strong. There was a cabinet maker, custom builder that I was fortunate enough to work with when I was doing summer stock theater in Port Dover, and I wanted to have a bottom of a box like this, or something we were doing where the bottom was just screwed to it and it wasn't captured, and I was like, oh, it'll just break off. And he had a set of a ladder that was on a counterweight system, and the box that was the counterweight system was a box with some eye bolts in it or whatever, but it was filled with bricks. He's like, this has been here 30 years, and that's how it's built. As long as you build it right, it's strong. It's not as strong as it captured in a dado or something, but it's strong. That's all together. And then the next step here is just to make sure this will actually fit inside here.